Evening. I call this meeting of the Littleton Historical Preservation Board for April 20th, 2020 to order. I'm City Clerk Colleen Norton. I will take an initial roll call. Board Member Overby.
Here.
Board Member Hood.
Here.
Board Member Field.
Here.
Board Member Geddes.
Here.
Board Member Fisher.
Here.
Board Member Spratlin.
Here.
Board Member Cronenberger.
Here.
Board Member Gabriel,
Here.
Board Member Hill.
Here.
We do have a quorum. This evening, I will be serving as the moderator for this evening's virtual meeting of the Historical Preservation Board. We are streaming this meeting on cable channel 8, Facebook, and on our website, littletongov.org. After nominations and election of a new board chair and vice chair, the meeting will be handled in the same way it would be handled at a regular in-person meeting. As always, citizen participation is encouraged during public comment and during public hearings. To participate via phone, please call 669-900-6833. Again, that number is 669-900-6833. When prompted, enter the webinar ID 972-408-41924. There will be 2 opportunities for public participation this evening, once during public comment and again during public hearings. Microphones will be muted for all citizens calling in. Citizens can press *9 to raise their hand to be recognized. Once recognized, speakers will have 3 minutes to address the board. The city clerk will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining, and again when your time is up. We expect comments to be civil. Disrespectful or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. For agenda items requiring action, the chair will ask for a motion and a second, followed by discussion and a vote. Votes will be made using a thumbs up for a yes vote and a thumbs down for a no vote. The clerk will call each vote with all ayes and nays. At this point, I want to entertain nominations for board chair. Do I hear any nominations for board chair?
Yes, I nominate Kimberly Field for board chair.
Do I have any other nominations? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to appoint Kim Field as board chair. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that Kim is the board chair.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Laura. At this point, I would ask all voting members of the board to show either a thumbs up for a yes to appoint Kim Field as board chair or a thumbs down. Go ahead and vote now. The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Chair Field.
Thank you.
Now I will entertain nominations for vice chair of the board. Do I have any nominations?
I'd like to make a nomination.
Go ahead.
Laura Gabriel.
Okay. Do I have any other nominations? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to appoint Board Member Gabriel as vice chair.
I move to appoint board member Gabriel as vice chair.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andy. Board Member Fisher moved and Board Member Hill seconded to appoint Laura Gabriel as vice chair. Go ahead and cast your votes now. The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously. At this point, I'm going to do one final roll call, and then I will turn the meeting back over to Chair Field. Chair Field?
Yes.
I'm doing the final roll.
Present.
Vice Chair Gabriel.
Present.
Board Member Overby.
Here.
Board Member Hood.
Here.
Board Member Spratlin.
Here.
Board Member Fisher.
Here.
Board Member Geddes.
Here.
Board Member Hill.
Here.
Board Member Cronenberger.
Here.
We do have a quorum. Congratulations, Chair Field. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And welcome to everyone tonight. We have 3 new board members. And I think it would be nice if we all introduced ourselves just and say something very, very brief about who we are. And I'd like to start with our new board members. Chris, would you like to go first and just tell us a little something about yourself?
Yes, I'm Chris Geddes, and my historic preservation background is I had 12 years at the State Historic Preservation Office working in the National Register program. And I have a master's degree in history and historic preservation from Colorado State University up in Fort Collins. And I am excited to be on the board.
Well, thank you very much. And how about you, Sarah? Would you like to go next?
Absolutely. I'm Sarah Overby. I'm a program officer at the Colorado Health Foundation, and I am just personally passionate about old buildings. And I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 10-month-old son.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. It's good to have you. And Rick, would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
Well, this is my second stint on the preservation board. The first one was 97 to 2003. I've been historic architect since 1978. I feel so old these days. And I also served on the state review board, and I believe Chris was there when I was sitting there for 6 years. And I'm excited to be back on the preservation board.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much. We have great new board members, but why don't the rest of the board go ahead and introduce yourselves? Lisa?
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Hood. My background is as a city planner, but always usually specializing in historic preservation as well. I currently work for Denver Regional Council of Governments, and this is my second year on the board.
Thank you. David?
Hi, David Spratlin. I'm a local architect here in Littleton and really want to be part of a historic preservation board from the get-go, primarily because I just really valued the character and the vibe that downtown Littleton has. I want to maintain that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, David. How about you, Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Gabriel. I'm a retired antique dealer and interior designer. I started out years ago in Potter Highlands in North Denver and sat on their historic boards for Highland United Neighbors, and did that for about 10 or 11 years. And now we live in Littleton. So I wanted to do historic preservation again here in Littleton.
All right. Thank you. Amy?
Hello, I'm Amy Fisher. I'm a native of Littleton, born and raised here, moved away and came back to raise my own family here. I'm also a certified archivist, and I've worked in private corporations doing archives and corporate heritage work. And now I work as a librarian branch manager.
All right. Thank you. Well, I'm Kim Field, and Michael and I have lived here since 1995. And I am a historian and an author, and I was a long time ago an archaeologist. And I am passionate about Littleton and its history. We have an incredibly unique resource in this community, and I want to do my part to try to keep it that way. Well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to see all of our new members and to see everyone. And I trust at some point we will be able to see each other in person again very soon. So let's go ahead and move on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, the agenda is approved. Now we go to minutes to be approved from our last meeting, from our February 26th meeting. And I'd like to entertain a motion and a second for approval of the meeting or meeting minutes from February 26th. Okay. Would somebody like to move to approve who was here? Andy, thank you. Or you need to say it, right? I think you do.
I move to approve the minutes for the February 26, 2020 regular meeting of the Littleton Historical Preservation Board.
And can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, so if we want to approve the minutes as is, we'll call for a vote now. Thumbs up for yes, thumbs down for no. So vote to approve the minutes.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on to our next piece of business, which looks like public comment. Throwing it back to Colleen.
Thank you, Chair. If you wish to address the Historical Preservation Board under public comment, please call 669-900-6833. Again, that number is 669-900-6833. When prompted, enter the webinar ID 972-4084-1924. Then press *9 to be recognized. Citizen microphones will be automatically muted until the citizen is called upon to speak. Callers will be identified by the last 3 digits of their phone numbers. When called on to speak, please state your name and district or address clearly for the record. Public comment is an opportunity to express opinions or ask questions regarding issues that are not part of public hearings on tonight's agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. The city clerk will notify you when you have 30 seconds remaining, and again when your time is up. The board is not authorized by the Colorado Open Meetings Law to discuss, comment, or take action at the meeting on any issue raised by public comment that is not part of tonight's agenda. We expect comments to be civil. Disrespectful or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. We currently have 1 caller in the queue for public comment. The caller with the last 3 phone number digits of 819 is first in line. Caller with the last 4 digits 819, you have been unmuted. Please begin speaking now and remember to introduce yourself and give us your district or your address.
Hi, Historical Preservation Board. This is Pam Chadbourne. I live in Council District 1, which is actually downtown, a block and a half from the city center, which we're not at tonight. But you can guess my interest in historic preservation because I live downtown. I have a couple of comments. First is about the minutes for February 26th, which were already approved, but I want to repeat a point that I think I made at that meeting. Item number 5 on February 26th gives my name and my topic, I guess, minutes and design standards, but it doesn't give my position or request about them. And I think it's really important to include the request that the speaker is trying to ask for and the reasons for that. Because people are taking their time to come and talk to you folks. And I think the position should be included in the minutes. Ironically, in fact, I said the same thing on February 26th, that I want the minutes to show the speaker's position and or reasons that in brief for why the speaker is coming to you. And the reason that they're taking the time. No matter who the speaker is, respect should be given to that speaker by indicating their position, their request of you, and their reasons briefly. And I think that's fundamentally important to the city in the process. The second point I wanted to make tonight is about proposals by staff for code changes. And I'm not seeing the kind of changes or rationale that I expect. I have work experience that I think is applicable. And typically when a change request is made, you show a was, you show a now, you show what are the benefits to the city that are expected and what are the costs, harms, or possible risks to the city and what are the mitigations. What are the costs and what are the changes going to do? But you show the impact. And I'm not seeing those in proposals for code changes. It's something that I find distressing, whether it's Planning Commission or Historical Preservation Board. We need to understand better what changes are being made. So thank you for listening to these concerns.
All right, thank you, Pam. Colleen, do we have any other callers?
We do not.
Okay. So that's our last caller. So I guess we can move on to general business. We have none on our agenda. So now we can, let's see. move on to our public hearings tonight. And Colleen, do you need to tell people how to do that, or?
Well, I think we've already been through the process to call in.
Okay.
It's the same as it is for public comment. Phone number and the webinar ID are the same. Press *9 to be recognized. So what we'll do is, Chair, I would ask you to read the first item by title. And then if you have any discussion with the board members prior to staff doing a presentation, then we can turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Okay, that sounds great. I will go ahead and read this. This is HPB Resolution 03-202, recommending approval of designation of the Littleton Post Office located at 5753 South Prince Street as an historic landmark. So are there any questions or by the board? Any discussion? Well, then I guess we'll just turn it over for a staff presentation.
Thank you. This is Andrea Mimnaugh. I'm planner with the Community Development Department, and I have served as the project manager for the proposed designation of the Littleton Post Office as a historic landmark. Let's see. Mike, are you in control of this PowerPoint? Not sure how to.
Yes, I think I can move it forward. There we go.
Okay, thank you. The city received the request to designate the post office, and it has been signed by Littleton Post Office Postmaster Kenneth Price, and his office is down in Highlands Ranch, but he serves as Littleton Postmaster as well. Mike? So first I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of the Littleton Post Office. And the first post office, before we had the building that we currently do, was located in the Harwood Inn, and it sat close to the intersection of South Rapp and Alamo right now, where those two streets are intersect. And that was in 1876. The post office remained there for a period of time, and the town's founder, Richard Little, was the postmaster. But soon the post office relocated a kitty corner to that location, and then moved to about 10 different locations on Main Street until finally in 1931. Mike, can you change the slide again? In oh, okay. No, that's good, that's good. So you can see on the left, in 1931, this was the first post office that was built in Littleton, and it was paid for with Works Progress Association funds. And there are several other post offices that in fact look just like this post office around the country. And then later, following World War II, when the city began to grow quite a bit, the post office needed to be enlarged. And you can see this addition at the back of the post office over on the right-hand side of the screen. Mike? So in order to designate a building in the city of Littleton as a historic landmark, it does need to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and criteria in the Historical Preservation Board regarding historic landmarks. We're going to start off first here with the comprehensive plan, And you see 4 bullet points on the screen here. And those are the categories under which historic preservation falls into. And I'm going to read off some excerpts here from the comprehensive plan that relate to preservation of the post office. The first one is that, quote, "We envision a Littleton in 2040 that has maintained the integrity of its established neighborhoods and historic areas." The next one is Littleton's heritage focus and the need to protect historical cultural assets. Under core values, we have a quote here, "A passion and commitment to architectural heritage and landmarks." And then the last one that I'll include is on the chapter on heritage, arts, recreation, and tourism. And this is a goal: continued protection and promotion of Littleton's heritage, especially where it is tangibly visible in historic architecture, designated district and landmarks, and distinctive neighborhoods and buildings. Okay, Mike, can you go to the next slide? All right, so I've pulled out a couple of applicable criteria from the code to include in the presentation. And they're listed up on the screen here. One is that the post office exemplifies elements of an architectural style, and that is colonial revival style. And you could see that in the cupola up at the top, and the brick, and the symmetricalness of the building, and the windows, which are 12/12. The building has undergone historic remodel, and that relates to the fact that in 1961, when the addition was put on and served the community, that too, in and of itself, is considered historic. The building exemplifies the social heritage of the community, and finally, it enhances the sense of identity in the community. Okay, next slide. Public notice is required for public hearings at the Historical Preservation Board, and for a landmark designation application, the city sends written notice to adjacent property owners. The city also posted notice at the city locations, and signs were posted at the post office that meet all in time to meet the city's required time frame. Next slide. So in conclusion, staff finds that the historic landmark designation of the Littleton Post Office appears to meet all of the criteria for approval, and therefore staff is recommending that the Historical Preservation Board recommend approval to City Council. If the Historical Preservation Board recommends approval to the City Council, that will be included in the staff communication that goes to the City Council, and they will have an opportunity to review your recommendation. And the resolution that was included in your packet reflects the staff recommendation to the HPB. So if you have any questions, I'm available to answer.
Does anyone have any questions for Andrea or comments about the post office? Okay. Oh, Andy.
Yeah, I just want to thank Rick and his partners. I can't remember who you worked with, Rick. I'm sorry, but thank you for your work on this. Thank you. Thank you for your team's work on this. It's really great to have this landmarked.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think this is one of those buildings everyone assumed it was landmarked. So I'm glad it's finally moving in that direction. So at this point, if no one has any questions for staff, Colleen, or is there any public comment on this? Anyone calling in?
I do have one caller on the line with their hand raised. I would like you though, Chair, if you would please open the public hearing at 6:55, if you would make that statement.
Okay, I'm opening the public hearing at 6:55.
Okay, so before I go to our caller, and we do have one on the line, and it is Ms. Chadbourne, I did want to bring to your attention that we did receive a letter from Gail Keeley from Historic Littleton, and she is supportive of this issue. I did share that with each of you, and a copy of that email will be included in the revised packet that will get posted online tomorrow, so it would be available for citizens to see as well. So I just wanted to make that known for the public. So at this time, I do have one caller in the queue. The last three digits of that number are 819. Caller, your mic has been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Pam Chadbourne again, still downtown Littleton, and I just wanted to thank everyone who worked on this for their work. I'm so glad that this is getting this designation, assuming that it gets approved. Just wanted to give you profound thanks. I think on behalf of people in the future who can't be here, they will thank you for doing this someday. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Pam. Are there any more callers?
Chair, I have no other callers in the queue. So at this point, if there's nobody else wishing to speak, we can close the public hearing at 6:57.
All right, thank you. Closing the public hearing at 6:57. Colleen, shall we make a motion to approve?
So yeah, you could ask for a motion and a second and then have some discussion. If you wanted to do that, yes.
Okay, I think we're ready to do that. Can I get a motion to approve HB Resolution 03-2202? Laura?
I move to approve HPB Resolution 03-202, recommending the approval of the designation of the Littleton Post Office located at 5753 South Prince Street as a historic landmark.
And can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, Amy. And now we'll open it for discussion. Is there any discussion among board members? All right, well, we can vote to approve.
I would like to offer an amendment, Kim.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you spoke up.
I'm trying to figure out the
and that is the perfect time, Rick. Okay. So this is where you would want to offer your amendment. You could go ahead and move to amend. We would need a second on your amendment. Then we would vote on the amendment before we vote on the main.
Okay, I like to.
You can offer your amendment. So basically, we're putting an amended motion on the table.
Not necessarily. Not okay. Necessarily. So Board Member Cronenberger will offer his amendment. If we get a second, we will vote on that amendment. If it passes, then we will be voting on the main motion as amended.
All right. Well, my question is, so Rick will make his amendment. We'll get a second on that, and then we can discuss it among the board before we vote on the amendment.
Absolutely. You can discuss that amendment, call for a vote. It's either going to pass or fail. If it passes, then we go back to voting on the main motion as amended.
Okay.
If it fails,
just
then
walk us through.
Yeah, if it fails, then we're back to the main motion as it is.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Rick, did you want to go ahead and make your amendment?
Yes. Do I need to repeat everything or just go right into the discussion?
You can just say, I move to amend.
I move to amend the historic preservation ordinance to list the post office as a historic landmark.
And what is your amendment?
Okay. I looked over the importance categories, and I'd like to add 2 additional importance categories to the one that the 4 that Andrea had identified already in the nomination.
And what are the two that you're adding?
So I read them all over. I thought there would be more. I reviewed the language against the National Register for Historic Places criteria and just came up with two that would really meet our local needs. The first one is category 2, which is an example of the work of an architect or builder who is recognized for expertise nationally, statewide, regionally, or locally. And this would be in regards to Louis A. Simon, who at the time, I didn't do a lot of research on him, but I found out afterwards that he's FAI architect, but he was the primary architect in charge of the post offices during this from 1933 to 1939. He had designed over 480 post offices throughout the United States. There's no question from the research I had done that he is nationally significant architect. And I think it would be important for us to recognize in Littleton that we have a nationally significant architect who has designed a building. It's even more important because the addition is very compatible with his original design. Now, he wouldn't have been involved with that. He had passed away a couple years before. The second category is category 10, which exemplifies cultural, political, economic, and social heritage of the community. There's no question that post offices are significant institutions for the community.
Board Member Cronenberger, if I could interrupt you really quickly.
Yes.
This is Ashley Augustine with the City Attorney's Office.
Yep.
You don't actually need to amend for the items that you're requesting because those are not enumerated or listed in the resolution itself. So it's not actually changing what the initial motion was. It's just changing the reasons behind it or adding additional reasons. So it doesn't sound like based on that, we would actually need to amend the resolution in motion itself, if that makes sense.
We just have to add these two? We don't have to amend it, we just add these?
They're items that Andrea could add and consider in her staff presentation to council. But because if you read the actual resolution itself, it doesn't enumerate these. It is just indicating that the code section has been met.
Okay. What I was looking at was, particularly with historic buildings, the more categories that you meet with them, it raises the level of significance much higher. Most of the buildings, most of the buildings in Littleton may only have 1 or 2. This is probably one of the few, if any, that would actually have 6 if the 2 suggestions I had were added onto it.
Correct. So that would all could be part of your discussion, even more so why you would want this to pass. And it could be things that Andrea could include for council.
Okay. So how would you like me to proceed from here, Ashley?
You could withdraw your motion to amend at this point, unless Colleen says otherwise.
No, I would withdraw the motion to amend as recommended by our Senior Assistant City Attorney, Augustine, and just make sure those notations are with Andrea, and then those can be updated as housekeeping items for justification. Okay. But you're not actually changing any substance in the resolution, just the argument behind it.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Okay.
So if you would withdraw your motion to amend, then we could go back to the main motion.
Okay, I will withdraw the motion to amend.
Okay, so we have the main motion on the table.
And so we can vote on the original motion that was on the table?
Correct. You can have conversation if you wanted to about it, Chair Field, or you could go straight to a vote.
All right. Is there any discussion? Yes, Chris.
Could we just let Rick finish what he was saying? Because I was kind of curious about that last little part, because the first part about, I know of Louis Simon, so that part was very interesting. I'd just like to hear what else he found out, just so we kind of know what's going forward to City Council.
Rick?
Okay, sure. I will continue.
Thank you.
That'll be fine. Okay.
Thank you.
The thing about post offices, and particularly in Littleton, it's always been a center of our community. The Congress has recognized the significance of post offices by allowing them to be nominated without consent of the agency, which heightens their importance because removing post offices from older downtown areas has been detrimental to their economics. In the case of Littleton, our post office is even more important in many ways because it bridges the original Littleton up to World War II, and then also the postmodern era of Littleton. When they added on to the post office, the lobby contains mid-century modern architectural features, which provides a link from downtown Littleton to Littleton Boulevard and our progress after World War II, which I think it makes it really a whole lot more important for the city to keep. That's basically what I was going to say, Chris.
Well, thank you, Rick. I'd have to agree with that. In Bob McQuarrie's excellent history of Littleton, the post office really figures into it as the gathering place where, people are meeting and talking and being welcoming of newcomers, especially during World War II, or not being welcoming of newcomers during World War II. It's a fascinating story, and Littleton's post office absolutely figures into it. So thank you for that, Rick.
One of the few places we can go today.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I guess we can, can't we?
Yes. Okay.
So is there any more discussion or comments or anything? Well, then we can go to a vote. So let's see, the motion that is on the table, I don't think we need to reread it, but everyone, all the ayes vote aye or nay. So aye.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. Great. All right. Well, we are moving along to our second public hearing item. And that is, I will read it, HPB Resolution 02-2020, approving a certificate of historic appropriateness for modifications to the facade of the Littleton mixed-use building located at 2679 West Main Street. So do I have a motion? I think shouldn't I be, staff presentation on it, sorry. Is that right? Colleen, help me out here. I'm dying.
No, you're doing great. So yeah, on this one, we do have a staff presentation, and then I believe we also have an applicant presentation.
Excellent.
So we'll start with the staff presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is Andrea Minogan with the planning staff, and we do indeed have the applicant with us tonight who's prepared to say a few words about the application. And again, this is a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness for modifications to the Littleton mixed-use building. Next slide. Littleton mixed-use building is located on the west end of Main Street. And here you can see on the map, it fronts onto Main Street and is located just on the right-hand side of Main Street before you make that curve to the left to come to the Santa Fe intersection. Next slide. And here is a map showing its location within the Main Street Historic District. Littleton Mixed Use is a building that is just a few years old and is not considered contributing to the historic district for that reason. Next slide. Well, the presentation to the Historical Preservation Board was originally scheduled for March 16th, 2020, but due to the events associated with COVID-19, the meeting was canceled. And so now that Preservation Board presentation is tonight, April 2020th. And then should this certificate of appropriateness be approved by the HPB, the next step in the process would be an amendment to the site development plan, and that would be an administrative approval. Next slide. Here you can see a picture of the Littleton mixed-use building, and the first certificate of appropriateness was for the building itself. You can see it's a 3-story structure. We have full view of those first 2 stories. The 3rd story is not as visible, but you can see that cedar wood canopy that does project out to a point where it can be seen on the street. The structure was completed in 2019, and since then there have been a number of amendments associated with the building. There were additional windows on the upper stories, street level storefront modifications. There was an ATM machine that was approved for the storefront, and then there were some new window configurations. Next slide. Tonight's request is for a replacement of some windows at that 3rd story with some doors. And the reason for that is that it needs to comply with the fire code. And this is something that has just come to light fairly recently. Next slide. So here you see highlighted in yellow where the proposed new doors would be. On the left-hand side, you can see through that yellow highlighting, and it shows what the existing configuration is. And then over on the right-hand side, you can see how those doors would change the look to some degree, to the extent that that 3rd level can be seen from other properties. Next slide. So this is also a replacement over on the west elevation, and you can see again the highlighted areas. On the left is what's existing, on the right is what's proposed. Next slide. In terms of the criteria that needs to be met for a certificate of appropriateness, one of them is that the proposed work must be visually compatible with development on adjacent properties. And so what I've done here in the 4 pictures over on the left is include some other buildings within the Main Street Historic District to show what their upper story windows look like. And you actually see quite a variation. On the top right-hand corner is the more traditional, which is, the original window openings size. And that's on the Bachelet and the Lilly buildings. Over in the upper left-hand corner, that's also original openings. That's the Abbott building. But when we move to the 2 lower pictures, in the lower left, that is the original 2 Potters building, and the 2nd story addition does in fact have a more contemporary style of window and door. And then finally the View House also has a more contemporary style windows and doors on their 2nd story addition that was approved a few years back. So staff is feeling that it appears that the proposal on the Littleton mixed use building or a more contemporary styling is in fact consistent and compatible with upper stories within the Main Street Historic District. Next slide. So again, the proposed work must be visual, compatible on adjacent properties. And so here these photographs were taken from adjacent properties. And as you can see, those new doors are not so visible from adjacent properties. Next slide. So in conclusion, staff finds that in compliance with the applicable code criteria and historical preservation code, that the criteria for the Littleton mixed-use building at 2679 Main Street has been met, and therefore staff is recommending approval of the HPB Resolution 02-2020, which approves the Certificate of Historic Appropriateness. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Are there any questions from the board? Laura?
Andrea, when I'm looking at the alterations proposed on their Certificate of Historic Appropriateness application, they're saying that the west elevation level terrace windows are for Metro Fire request, but the south elevation level 3 terrace just says replace aluminum storefront openings with a La Cantina multi-side panels. That one does not say it's part of the egress or fire code for the Metro Fire District. Can you explain that?
Yes, let's have the applicant explain that, please.
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay? So yeah, that is an accurate observation. So the 2 openings on the south side are replacing 2 existing storefronts, same rough opening size. The door and storefront system that's being added to the west side is actually a new opening within a masonry wall. And when South Metro took a look at the potential population on that terrace, they requested that we put a door at that north end of the terrace around the corner to allow for additional exiting of the population off of the terrace.
Okay.
You are correct. Those 2 openings to the south have nothing to do with the South Metro request for additional egress width.
Okay, so why are you requesting that we change those out?
I think it is a required request for us to change those because it is modifying, fenestration on a building that exists within the historic district. Is that correct, Andrea?
I'm not sure you heard the question correctly.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm saying that the west elevation level window is per the request of the Metro Fire Code. The south elevation windows, why are you requesting that those be changed out?
To incorporate larger openings from the interior of the building out to the terrace.
Okay.
It essentially replaces a window with a set of large sliding doors.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any other questions for Andrea or for the applicant? Okay.
I just have one. Did South Metro Fire respond to this based on your proposal for this change? Or did they just show up and decide that you needed this egress?
Yeah, I think, ultimately it's the latter. I think they should have caught this during the core and shell permitting, and they did not. We are not the core and shell architect for this particular building. We are only providing the tenant fit out for levels 2 and 3. And I think once they looked at the population of that terrace, I don't know if it was a new individual at the fire department, they decided that an additional egress door at that north end would be appropriate.
Okay.
Amy, you had a comment or a question? I thought I saw your hand. So are there any other questions or comments, questions for staff? Colleen, is there a formal presentation by the applicant that we need to entertain at this time?
Mr. Robertson is the applicant. So Matt, have you showed everything that you want to show? Do you have a formal presentation?
I do have a presentation, but I think Andrea did a fine job, illustrating the changes, and I would really just be repeating which she's already shown. I'm happy to go back through that if you want additional color or an opportunity to ask more questions.
Okay. At this point, do we need public hearing on this particular
Yes,
resolution?
Yeah, this is a public hearing this evening. So with your support, if you're ready, we can open the public hearing at 7:20.
Yes.
We do have one caller on the line with the last three digits of 819. I do not see a hand raised to comment on this item. The caller with the last three phone number digits of 819. If you wish to speak, please press *9 to raise your hand. If not, we will close the public hearing at 7:21 with no public comment.
All right. And then let's see, do we have a motion on the floor? I don't remember.
We do not have a motion yet. We would need a motion and a second, Chair.
Would someone like to move to approve?
I would move, but if there's a motion to read, I can't find it.
It's on page, let's see, 1, 2, 3 of the document that Colleen sent out, the agenda.
Oh. Well, I have a different document up, so.
I have it in front of me, so I can make the motion.
Oh, great, Amy, thank you.
I hope this is the right one. We'll find out. I move to approve HPB Resolution 02-2020, approving the Certificate of Historic Appropriateness for the Littleton Mixed Use Building located at 2679 West Main Street.
And do we have a second?
Andy? Looks like Andy has seconded. So is there any discussion among the board? Yes, Lisa.
I just wanted to say this seems like a relatively straightforward change. It's minor, it's very, it's almost invisible from the street or adjacent properties. So to me, it seems pretty straightforward. But I do want to just note that I have some concerns about the kind of piecemeal nature of all of the certificates of appropriateness coming in for this building. And to me, I don't know if that's a question of whether these are changes that actually warrant certificates of historic appropriateness or should be just considered minor changes administratively approved by staff rather than coming back for multiple public hearings, or whether the applicant or the tenant finish they need to work better together to submit all of this as one package rather than these piecemeal changes. But aside from that concern, I do think that the changes are relatively minor, and I'll be supporting the motion.
And does staff want to address Lisa's question?
Yes. So, in fact, there have been quite a few requests for modifications. And I believe the first one was done while the building was still under construction, and it was necessary because just due to a couple of different of inches in the slope on the sidewalk, that there couldn't be doors where originally were planned. And so that one was just something that came up unexpectedly. And then I would say that the rest of them really had to do with tenants moving in. So the bank came in later, they wanted the ATM, and now we have the workspace company that has some ideas about how they would use their space as well. The other point I'd like to make is that currently the Historical Preservation Code does require nearly all modifications to go to the Historical Preservation Board. And during the course of updating the Historic Preservation Code, there will be an opportunity to revisit that and make some changes if it seems necessary and needed and would be approved by City Council.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. And that was a great question, Lisa. Rick, did you have your hand up?
I agree wholeheartedly with what Lisa's saying, particularly on buildings that are not historic and where it's not drastically affecting the approved exterior appearance, which is really what we're mostly interested in, not the little details that occur on the building.
Okay. Laura, did you have your hand up?
Oops. I did, but I was going to say the same thing as Lisa. So thank you, Lisa.
Okay. So that is duly noted. I think that's an excellent point that Lisa raised and that several others have kind of seconded. Are we ready for a vote on Resolution 02-2020? All right. All those in favor of HPB Resolution 02-2020, please signify by thumbs up.
Chair, thank you. The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. All right, now we are moving on to the third public hearing item. It is HPB Resolution 05-2020, recommending approval of proposed Planning Commission Resolution number 4, Series 2020, for various changes to the downtown Littleton design standards. Staff presentation, please.
Excellent. Good evening.
Hi, Jennifer.
Preservation Board. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Excellent. Well, you are doing great, Kim, on leading this. So great job. So if I can talk, this will be good. This evening, we are going to be going over the proposed changes to the downtown Littleton design standards. Mike, you want to hit the next slide? So if you'll remember, we came to you at a joint study session with Planning Commission about these design standards way back in February. And since then, we have done some public outreach. And now we're at the stage that we would like you guys to consider the proposed changes to that. And then your recommendation will be forwarded on to Planning Commission for their meeting next Monday, and then on to ratification by City Council on the 19th of May. Next slide. One of the updates that we will be doing as part of these changes is to update our document, the design standards document, with this most up-to-date boundary map. So this is the map we've been operating on, but in our design standards, that map had not been updated. So as part of these changes, we will be updating that map. Next slide. So there are actually 11 proposed changes to the design standards. One is the facade requirements, and I'll have, Mike is going to go into more detail on each one of these. And I do ask if you guys can kind of hold your questions and just make notes on what you have questions on. And Mike and I will go through this whole presentation and then we'll take your questions. So the first group of changes has to do with our facade requirements. Then we have those changes addressing pedestrian access and amenities. Then we have added an actual prohibition of slot homes that will be associated with our design standards. We address utility box locations, roof pitch, particularly in sub-area 4, and then landscaping requirements, changing those and make them making them a little bit more succinct. And then also changing or modifying definitions. And the definitions you see there on the right side are to at least some courtyard, passageway, porch, and slot home. Next slide. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mike to go through these one by one.
Thanks, Jen. And good evening, members of the Historic Preservation Board. The facade requirements, a lot of the proposals you're going to see tonight were designed to make slot homes a little bit, or to change fundamentally the design of slot homes. But even with the prohibition of slot homes that's been added, some of these design changes are still a good idea, and staff would like to keep them in. For example, facade requirements, requiring that the front facade be at least 50% of the length of the lot line. This, as I said, was initially designed to change slot homes, but is still, we think, a good idea in the downtown neighborhood. And also, it would change the doors to have right now, the requirement for multifamily structures is to have both doors, or at least two doors, face the street. And the proposed change, what we had seen in some of these slot homes, was they put a door on the front facade, and then the secondary door could be very far back on the building. So we had made a suggestion early on that we change this to a 10-foot, no more than 10 feet behind the door on the front facade could be the second door. And during the study sessions, it was suggested that this be changed to 6 feet, which we did. The key point of the entire design standard changes is the prohibition of slot homes. This occurs in a couple different areas in the blue line drawings that have been distributed to you. And I should note that the number at the upper left-hand corner of the presentation corresponds to the spreadsheet that analyzes each of the proposed design standards changes. So utility and meter box locations, again, this is primarily designed for slot homes, where we would see that second entrance occasionally have meter boxes that were located in front of the second entrance. These were always screened, but we have a new proposal to prohibit meter boxes in front of that second entrance. This is the one change. The fifth numeral change is the roof pitch in sub-area 4. And this is the one change that really isn't related to slot homes necessarily, but is intended to give more of a presence to roof structure than was required by the 312 pitch. This particular provision, all the other provisions in this in the proposal would apply to all of the downtown area. Not the entire city, but just the downtown. This particular provision would only apply to sub-area 4, which is the northwest residential area, which requires currently a 312 pitch. On the right-hand side of the slide, I've illustrated the difference between a 312 pitch and a 512 pitch. This is a scale drawing, so you can see that the red line is 3 units in rise for every 12 in run, whereas the blue line is what we're proposing is 5 units in rise for every 12 units in run. And we think that'll make a significant difference in how roofs are viewed. In staff's experience, reviewing several of the downtown developments in the recent past, the roof element doesn't have enough impact on the view of the building. So this, I think, would make a pretty big difference in what you see as you drive down the street. Number 6 is landscape requirement. Currently, open space areas are required by both city code and the design standards, but we have no living material requirement within those open spaces, which might result in some open spaces being rock mulch or wood mulch. The proposed requirement, which council wanted this item addressed, so we suggested a 75% living material requirement within the required open space on a lot. And we feel this would be a character element that would match the current character of the downtown neighborhood, which has a lot of living plant material. This doesn't necessarily require that this be bluegrass or anything like that. It could be xeric material, but it would be living material, which could help ensure some greenery in the downtown neighborhood and also prevent those rockscape and wood mulch areas that you see frequently. We have new definitions proposed in the design standards changes. 3 of them are courtyard, porch, and passageway. Again, these are targeted at slot homes and how slot homes are designed. We feel that these are still good definitions because they show up in the design standards and are still useful to some degree, but the prohibition against slot homes takes care of a lot of this concern. At least some has been revised. That's a currently defined element of the design standards. And boy, it was really botched. I mean, it has sort of a typo in it, and we always had to refer to it. And so we're just kind of correcting that typo. So the big another big part of the proposed design standards changes is the definition of a slot home. As you may recall from the board members that were present during the study session may recall that we patterned our definition off the Denver definition. And this, I've reprinted it here. You can all read it. It's in your packet. But it really centers on homes or multifamily units that are perpendicular to the street or oriented perpendicular to the street. As a result of the study sessions, we did include an illustration into the design standards to add some clarity to this definition. And you can see on the screen that we have 3 scenarios that are illustrated. Each of these have a 7-unit building. Some of them have 2 7-unit buildings. But you can see in example A that this would be a prohibited design because the units are obviously oriented perpendicular to the street. And unit B shows the same type of units. They're arranged at where the courtyard in the middle, where the front doors would face a courtyard, but we would still consider that to be a slot home. Illustration C shows, again, the same units arranged on a central alley. The building on the left would certainly be considered a slot home. In this case, it's on a corner. The building on the right may be allowed because it faces the street, but not in conjunction with both buildings. It would only be allowed as a standalone. And staff believes that the prohibition on slot homes would pretty much interior lots would most likely be either townhomes or duplexes. The slot home format would still be possible corner lots. And I'll turn it back over to Jen.
So next slide. There you go. Excellent. So with that, staff does recommend approval of HPB resolution number 5-2020. The alternatives are to add conditions or recommend denial of the proposed PC resolution. And as I stated at the beginning, our next steps are going to Planning Commission next Monday, and then council for their ratification of the design standard changes on May 19th. I do want to add before we get into questions, I know there were several other things such as lot area coverage, height, open space, space in between buildings that were all brought up at the Planning Commission HPB meeting. And we really feel like those need more community conversation. And those will be part of the conversation at our next Envision Studio. I don't know how many of you were able to participate in our first studio back in March, but we'll be having another one on the 18th of May. So I do encourage all of you to be a part of that. And we probably will have a survey as well coming soon about some of the changes that we're proposing that do go into more depth of those other questions that you had. So with that, I'd like to open it up to questions, and Mike and I are available to answer.
Thank you, Jennifer. So does anyone on the board have questions for staff? Laura.
Yeah, I've got two questions. With regard to the 512 pitch on the roof pitches, why is that only going to apply to sub-area 4?
Thanks, Laura. That is the only area right now that we have a roof pitch standard of 3 to 12.
Okay. Okay. And then my other question is, we're talking about restricting or taking the landscape to 75% green. What is the normal residential requirement for a normal house in Littleton? So, I mean, if I'm doing something in my yard, in the front yard, is there a requirement for green? And if there is, do we know what that is?
So right now, there is no requirement for a certain or a definite percentage of living plant material in any other area of the city that I'm aware of, other than planned development districts, which have specific requirements. But in our R3 or R1 or R3X districts, we don't have a living landscape material requirement.
Okay. Okay. That's my question. Thank you.
Are there other questions for staff? Rick?
I just have a comment. I looked this over. I think it's a really good start to try to maintain the character of our downtown area. And I know there's a lot more we have to do as far as the south area goes, but I think this is a good start to get a handle of the visual destruction we've had of the north side of Main Street in downtown Littleton. You know, it should create some much better architecture, which would be nice.
Oh, and just to add to that, Rick, so we are going to be doing kind of a phase 2 amendment. We did do a scope amendment with KKC. So we're really hoping to put a lot of these, obviously the phase 1 changes will go into effect after the 19th of May, but the phase 2 changes, which will start to address specifically downtown, we are really hoping that we'll be able to put those into effect this year in 2020 and not have to wait until the entire ULUC is completed, which right now is slated for October of 2021.
I'd like to just make a couple of comments. One, Jennifer and Mike, I think that you did a great job of kind of capturing and coalescing the points that I heard made in the joint meeting between Planning Commission and HPB several weeks ago. And I particularly like the document, that shows the visual that shows downtown development since 2014. I'm going to have to get much stronger glasses to actually read it, but I think it's really useful to kind of look and see the examples and know where they are in the city and also what was there. So thank you very much for that. Are there any other questions for staff? Yes, Lisa.
I just wanted to ask, well, first I wanted to kind of say the same thing that Kim said about thank you for taking the comments from the study session, and I could see the changes that you guys made after that. I just had a question about the public outreach and how that was promoted, just because there were only 11 survey responses. So that's not a ton of people. So I'm just curious how that's advertised and how people find out about it. And then if there's maybe a plan for the next phase, which will include a lot more controversial topics, hear from more people in the survey and for the next phase.
Mike, do you want to answer the question about how we did the survey, and then I'll take the second question?
So that's exactly what I was planning on. So Lisa, thank you. The initial survey was sent on Littleton plans. So we did, with every code change or design standard change, we do study sessions to start, which helps alert some of the residents and property owners and development community of what's going on. Then we'll post the proposed changes on Littleton plans, and we send out a survey to everyone who signs up on the Littleton plans website.
Okay, Mike's been having some issue with bandwidth at his house. So it looks like he's frozen. But we do send that out to...
And it's typical to get a lot of comments at all until we start sending out the surveys. So, oh boy, my internet connection is unstable.
We lost you for about 15 seconds there.
Oh, shoot. Well, so we send it out for 2 weeks in advance. And then I thought the response was good, but we need to, we probably can make improvements in how many respondents we get. I think it's the 15 we get is an improvement over what we had received in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then in order to get more input as we move forward, obviously it is part of our Envision Littleton program. So we have that entire mailing list that we developed over the last 2 years with Envision Littleton. So the design studio, that invitation goes out to everyone. So we definitely have expanded our reach and who is being educated about the downtown changes that we have going on. So I do anticipate moving forward, we're using that Envision Littleton reach. So we will have more input. The Envision Studio alone, when we did the virtual, and that was kind of the first virtual that we've done of anything in the city ever, we had 100 people actually signed up for it. And I think we had a little over 50 that actually tuned in that night. So I think the numbers will keep increasing for the input. Does that answer your question, Lisa?
Yeah, it does. I think that maybe for the next phase, just trying to reach people that aren't already tuned in with Littleton plans might be a good goal, like just doing general social media or next door posts or something to kind of alert people to what's going on that aren't already tuned in.
Absolutely. And please, feel free to spread the word as well, because that's really how we're going to get the most participation is word of mouth too. So
that's what I was going to say, Jennifer. I think as board members, we're more in tune with what's going on in the city. So when we see these plans being proposed, we should talk to all of our neighbors and encourage them to go on the site and become involved.
Right.
A lot of people just aren't going to be in tune to what's happening until the last minute. But in order for us to even do our job on Historic Preservation Board, if we encourage more people to be involved, it'll be better and easier for us.
Yes, using your own personal Facebook pages to spread the word about what's going on in Littleton is great.
Those are good points. And Lisa, to your point, Nextdoor, I think, is being used more and more and more, especially right now. So that's a good place to promote this and to talk about it and get folks who actually live in Littleton to kind of focus on it. Well, if there aren't any more questions or comments for staff, why don't we open the public hearing?
Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have hands up all over. Chris, Sarah, and Rick, I believe.
Yes, that's good order.
We have a little delay. I don't actually see it all that quickly.
That's okay. I'll try and catch it for you too.
Okay, good. So, Sarah, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say thank you, Lisa, for asking that question. I had the same one.
Excellent. All right, thank you. And then Rick?
Yes, I had looked at the map, the drawing of all the buildings since 2014. I think that's really good to have these visual elements. But I noticed one proposed building that doesn't fit with the sub-area descriptions. And that's the Alamo Street building, the one that's going to be replacing or proposed for where the Irish building is right now. So when this is the first time I've looked at the sub-area district descriptions. I think they're really well done. I've been trying to spend 11 years of catch up on what's been going on the preservation board the last couple of days. I really like the description of that area, but that particular example is a large residential building. It doesn't fit with the small scale residential that's called out for in the desired character on that site particularly.
Mike, do you want to address why that is?
Yes, thanks, Rick. I appreciate that that comment. That item is still in review. So the applicant's hands that are waiting to do a resubmittal. We've made several comments on it. Initially, when we went through that that map after we proposed to remove slot homes from the downtown area, the question was whether that would be classified as a slot home. But all its units face Curtis Street, so we did not classify that as a slot home. It's still under review. We don't know what the outcome will be right now. So I just appreciate those comments.
Yeah, my main concern is Alamo has had very little visual impact over the last 30 years. And this would be the first really big building on the last street in downtown that has original, more or less original historic character and hasn't been altered.
Okay, Chair, I believe that Chris also had a question.
Yes, Chris.
I didn't have a question so much as a comment, just that kudos to all three groups that have taken this on: City Council, Planning Commission, and HPB, because slot homes are definitely controversial, not just, you know, in Littleton or Denver, but across the nation. And it, you know, it really does significantly impact a neighborhood. And a lot of communities are not willing to stand up and say, hey, we don't want this. And so this is huge. And I've told a few of my friends who are in preservation about this, and they're like, what? They were just stunned to hear that, you know, the City Council asked Planning Commission and HPB to do this and to find a way to stop slot homes. So I kudos to everybody who's been involved with this, because it's a massive undertaking and it's a controversial one.
It's a good point. Rick.
And just to reiterate, Chris, on that. We're just talking about downtown, but there are slot homes showing up in the north of Littleton Boulevard, which also has very tight sites and has been identified as a potential historic district. There's one really ugly building on Berry Street, right near Datura. If you go over there, you can see it. So it's a big issue expanding outside the downtown area as well. And I'm sure the city staff all knows that as well.
Kim, if I can add one thing,
Yes.
especially for our new members of the board, there are, and Mike can give a number, but there are a number of projects that have been approved prior to these changes going into effect. So you will see some buildings go up that, again, were in the queue for development prior to us making these code and design standard changes. So
I think
reiterate that.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I think that underscores the need to move at a smart pace, because projects are getting approved, and you know, the built landscape is changing. So we need to move with intention, I guess. Okay.
As you'll recall, we also have 2 moratoriums in place that we put into place so we could work on these design standard and code changes. So those are set to expire. And we actually do have some recommendations for the one related to multifamily residential to be extended. So that will go before council. Colleen, help me out.
Tomorrow evening.
Yes, tomorrow. Okay. Yes.
That moratorium does expire. It expires in May. Is that right? If not extended?
It does, but in order to meet the notification and first and second reading. So tomorrow is actually first reading.
Tomorrow is first reading. Second reading would be May 5th.
Okay.
And then ordinances are effective 7 days after passage and publication. So that's why it's moving forward now.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions or comments? All right. Let's open the public hearing at 7:57.
Okay, Chair, we do have one caller in the queue and one caller only. The caller with the last 3 phone number digits of 819. Go ahead and tell us your name and your district or address, and you can begin speaking now.
Hi, this is still Pam Chadbourne, living downtown, and I have some confusion and comments. First, let me talk about roof pitch. I think my roof pitch is probably the 3 to 12. It's easy to clean gutters and walk on. 5 to 12 would be riskier to walk on, and so it may look good, but I think there's another implication here about maintenance. I also want to ask about solar panels and how those are affected or would be affected by steeper roof slopes. You know, this is like a fundamental problem in which these are systems. Buildings are systems. They are systems within a neighborhood, and I don't understand the full impact of changing the roof pitch. I happen to like my roof pitch. I think it's practical. I'm not sure it should be changed like this. Second of all, it's great to add a requirement for living material in landscaping, and I would like to see more of that because we are adjacent to the South Platte River. We need to support wildlife. I can say, living here, that the development that's happening now is going to choke off wildlife access between the river and the rest of Littleton. And this should be stronger, this requirement for landscaping. Now, I have to confess to bewilderment because what Planning Commission talked about at its last meeting included a whole bunch of other things that aren't in here, and I don't understand why you're not being asked about them. So whether that's here or not, Historic Preservation Board, I think as citizens you care about these things. One of them was to reduce the size of parking spaces. I'm going to say that on the north side of Littleton from Broadway to Santa Fe, we should keep our parking spaces the same to maintain the character of these areas the historic character, the environment. That's exactly what design standards are set up for. So the parking changes that were proposed in the planning commission stuff, which aren't here now, I don't know why not, please look into that and see what's going on. Another thing that was in the planning commission code changes was the P4 process. And there was a concept that may include Historic Preservation Board. I'm going to say that P4 should absolutely be required to consult HPB. This is the proposed change is 2 weeks. You should be required to be there. Another change in P4 is that they're proposing to allow applicants to present, but no staff or public presentation. I'm sorry, but if the applicant gets to present, then staff and the public should get to comment. P4, I think, is out of control. It's a bad thing. It gives too much power to too few people, totally against the intent of design standards and code. There's a number of other issues in that planning commission stuff that aren't here. I don't know why. Please, though, Historic Preservation Board, I think that you care about some of these things.
Okay, Pam, you are at 3 minutes. So thank you very much for your comment. Are there any other comments, public comment?
Chair, no, I have nobody else in the queue wishing to speak at this time.
All right. Well, then we will close the public hearing at 8:01 p.m. And then would someone like to make a motion regarding this resolution? It's, let's see. HPB.
Board Member Hill had her hand up.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that
motion.
I move to approve HPB Resolution 05-2020, recommending Planning Commission approval of proposed Resolution 4-2020.
Is there a second?
A second.
Well, thank you, Amy and Andy. So let's have, is there any discussion of this among the board? Any comments or points that we'd like to raise? Yes, Rick.
I talked quite a bit with Mark Ragnicki about these changes today and also 2 weeks ago when they were first being proposed. And this is the first step to getting control of downtown. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be fast, and it's going to get more complicated than this little change that's being proposed right now. So, right, and it's going to have a huge impact on other potential historic buildings in downtown Littleton.
Thank you. And one thing that I would like to just add is that the one comment, it could be our bumper sticker slogan for all of this. People that I talk to about this and the quality of the design that we're getting downtown right now, some of it is very nice and some of it not so much, is the desire that the city of Littleton put thought into this and do not settle. Don't settle for bad design. Don't settle for, people taking a course of action that is not going to be something that Littleton wants to live with for many, many, many years to come. So don't settle, I think is the watchword for this. Okay, so shall we go ahead and vote? So all in favor of HPB Resolution 05-2020 as put forth, please signify your approval with a thumbs up. And all of those opposed with a thumbs down.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Now, it is time. Oh, good. I think we are down to bullet number 7 on our agenda, which is for comments and reports. So Community Development Director, do you have a report for us this evening?
Hello again. Great job on your first virtual meeting tonight.
Ain't over yet.
Yes, it takes a village to do these things. So, and Colleen, thank you for your script.
Yes.
Yes. So as you all are aware, the city has been closed to the public for almost a month now. We are working on what going back into the building will look like. So stay tuned on that. I did want to report that our construction activity all over the city has not slowed at all. And actually during this time, we've been able to develop virtual inspections for a select number of items so we can keep inspections and construction going. We have also not seen a slowdown in plan reviews that are being requested and the number of permits being requested. We're actually up about 43% from our numbers last year at this time, even with the current crisis that we're in. So development continues to happen in Littleton, so that's good. As I'm sure you've heard, we're looking at some budget crunches due to the economic impact of COVID. So stay tuned on that. It probably will affect some of our grant programs that we offer, unfortunately. But that is an unfortunate side effect of this virus. So, and besides that, like I said, we do have some projects that you're going to see going up in downtown as well as other areas of the city that are kind of coming Unified Land Use Code updates. And then my last thing is please participate on the May 18th Envision Studio that's coming up. So I believe that sign up is already live on Envision Littleton. And we also have a new website that I'll have Andrea share with you for our ULUC, that's Unified Land Use Code, ULUC project site. So I'll have her share that with all of you if you haven't seen that yet. And you can keep up to date there. That is all I have.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions for Jennifer? Andrea?
Andrea, you're muted.
Andrea, you're muted, yay.
So the May 18th date is actually the regularly scheduled date for the HPB meeting. It's the third Monday. So I'm thinking we'll need to reschedule the HPB meeting.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has a bus to catch, so.
No, I'm planning on attending that Envision meeting, so.
Yeah.
I apologize that we had to double book you all. It was based on when our consultant could come. So we just kept with that, even though they won't be here.
So Colleen, can you send out, potential meeting dates or reschedule us and we can just respond to that?
I'll work with Andrea on that. She's going to, we're going to have to look at what, if any, business we have coming up that needs to be discussed in May. We don't know if we're still going to be doing virtual meetings by the middle of the month or the end of the month. Even if we are starting to open back up a little bit, there has been talk that we may still be doing virtual meetings. And so the thought is right now that if we don't have actual business to discuss that is of a time-sensitive nature, then we would probably look at pushing the meeting out, but I would have to work with Andrea on that. And so that's something we can touch base on tomorrow and see if we need to do. Andrea, do we have anything on deck for May?
We have no public hearings coming up for HPV, but we're looking at scheduling a study session for an exercise on downtown Littleton's historic character that was originally going to go last month before that meeting was canceled.
Okay, and so that's something that we can discuss And we would probably want to get some direction from the corner office to see if that's something we wanted to still do in the virtual realm, or if we wanted to wait until we're all back together. And so I'll take the lead on that tomorrow with the corner office. Jen, unless you want to do that. And then Andrea and I can have a conversation, and one of us will get word out to the board on what to expect for next month as far as meetings.
Okay, thank you. And then Andrea, do you have a report for us?
Yeah, I have a couple of items. First, regarding the post office, we will be scheduling it for City Council now for consideration of an ordinance designating the post office. And when that date is set, I will send out an email to let you know what that is. And let's see, the next item is that the city has received an application for a gas station, Murphy's Motor Oil, and that would be at 181 West Littleton Boulevard. And it would mean that if it is approved, that the Littleton Motor Bank, which was one of the buildings included in the commercial modernism survey on Littleton Boulevard, that would be demolished to make way for the gas station. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that application. And then the other thing is that we have learned that a new coffee house is coming to Littleton Boulevard, and that would be 1190 West Littleton Boulevard. And the name of it is Lost Coffee. They started out in Castle Rock. And this building, you probably know it as the former ARC drop-off site, former gas station. So nice reuse of that historic gas station. And that's all I have.
And that was also part of the survey, is that right?
That was part of the survey as well, yes.
But the Motor Bank building, and what a great thing. I mean, that coffee shop coming to town, and it's a nice reuse of that building. I mean, that's a win. So, but Motor Bank building, what tier was that in on the survey?
Tier 2.
It's a tier 2. So that's a very important structure on our Littleton Mid-Mod Mile that is seriously threatened right now. So yes, Rick.
Is that the only property to be removed, or what about the other two next to it on either side of it?
Yes, we are looking at them demolishing Gravina's as well. That's the next property to the east.
But not the tire place, the old tire place.
The tire place on the corner of Bannock and Littleton Boulevard is not part of this application.
Okay. The Motor Bank is one of the 4 Unisonian buildings that we have in the city. And if you have never looked at it real closely, it's really fine designed, though we don't know who the architect is.
It's an incredible building, that's inspired by the Usonian style of Frank Lloyd Wright. So it's an extremely important building. And one more point is, the corner of Littleton Boulevard and Broadway is certainly a marquee piece of real estate in Littleton. And it says a lot about, the community's character and kind of, who we are and what we look like. And I guess I'm thinking of the don't settle. Is that what we want there? How does that fit with the comp plan as far as the character that and the use that we want for such a marquee intersection?
I think one of the keys, unfortunately, with this application with respect to historic preservation goals is that there is no restriction on demolition of the building.
So if they want to put a gas station there, we're going to get a gas station.
So without the property being designated as a historic landmark, the property owner does have the ability to submit and receive a permit for demo. That's why we have landmark designation in our code. hopefully we'll be able to get some more landmarks in the city to make sure that our character is preserved.
Rick, did you want to say something?
Yes, this is why it's imperative that the former list of merit or the new legacy list is approved and we get these buildings listed on there. They've all been surveyed, they're all determined eligible, and we should get them all, they should all be identified so the public knows what's going to be impacted. But Angie, I was wondering how that piece of property fits into the Littleton Boulevard development plan, I think it's called, that was approved 20 years ago. It must have been at least 20 years ago that was done. It took it took place all of Littleton Boulevard from Broadway down.
Yeah, so we've been looking at that plan recently, and there's been a question about how many components there were to the plan. And at one point we thought that there was a large document associated with it, but at the moment it doesn't appear that that actually does exist. We've gone back to the consultant that helped work with us on it. And so we're continuing to look at that document. And I'll also say that the application has just come in, so staff has not had an opportunity yet to complete, or for that matter, begin the staff analysis.
Okay.
So more coming up on that.
Okay, yeah, please keep us posted. All right, if you don't have anything else, Andrea, do any board members have any comments or things that they would like to bring up at this time? Yes, Lisa.
Just wanted to update everybody on the Littleton Legacy project. We had talked, I guess, 2 months ago about how we were going to try to go for a state historic fund grant in order to get a consultant on board to do that project. That application was due April 1st, and due to all of the COVID changes, we did not submit an application for that grant round. So we're hoping to be able to figure out a way to submit for the next grant round, which is October 1st. So just wanted to update everybody on that.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Rick.
If you want me to talk about this right now, I can, Kim.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay. All right. Here's what I'm talking about. Before I went on the board, or decided to reapply actually to the board last fall, Andrea and I were talking about the downtown. And the one thing that I've observed of living in the city for 40 years is that we have all these words we use about the city: authentic, small town, original, cultural. We have a character, but no one can identify what this is. Historic character is very difficult to define, and everybody's always just throwing out words without understanding what that really is. So what I was working with Andrea on was a questionnaire that we present to the board that would look at various aspects of downtown, Main Street and Alamo. And this was for the board. It's not a quiz, not a test, but a lot of people have perceptions of what exists, what character is, what the site looks like. And one way to get past fighting over what character is or impacts into a district, we need to know what really exists there. So this questionnaire will ask your view, your vision, your memory, probably more memory, of what you think's going on downtown without going out there and looking at it. And I think it's going to be pretty eye-opening to fill this thing out. And we would do it really quickly. Andrea would be sending it out to us, but it'll help us as a board to kind of figure out what is really historic in Littleton, what really is a character, and what is really contributing to the downtown area of the city. I think it would be pretty enlightening, and it will help us as a board to better talk to the planning commission and the community then of what we determine is the character that exists right now and that we may lose.
And then Rick and I talked about this a little bit, and this sounds like an incredibly exciting exercise to do and really informative and important. And we were talking about, this questionnaire that would be sent out. It would take no more than about a half hour max to just quickly fill out, just do it from memory. And I was in resist the urge to cheat, to go downtown and look at what's actually there. And I desperately want to cheat because I was thinking about this one block in the downtown area. And, I think to myself, I know exactly what's there. I go there all the time. I cannot conjure a picture in my mind of what that block looks like. So I'm really interested in filling out this questionnaire, and then you would send them all back, and then we would, in a study session, just really discuss kind of what our perceptions are and what the character of downtown really is. And the whole, that part of the exercise would probably take 90 minutes to maybe a couple of hours as a study session. I think Rick was saying, and then we could actually go down there, and by then the weather will be beautiful, and we can walk the area and just kind of walk and talk and discuss and see what we think about all of that. And the thing that we were talking about is doing this sooner rather than later, to do it as quickly as possible. And certainly the discussion and the quiz and those results, we could do virtually. And then this kind of sets the stage because, for us going forward on this term of the board and what the activities that we want to do with downtown, because it'll firmly ground us and kind of get us all on the same page about what character actually is. I'm kind of reminded of, the old thing that saw about the Supreme Court's definition of profanity, or not profanity, pornography. It's that, I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it. And so we kind of want to change that up a little bit for historic character. We want to actually be able to articulate what Littleton's historic character is. So I was tremendously excited when Rick was telling me about this, and I think we'll all really enjoy it. So we'll kind of update you on that, and our goal is to try to do this in May, at May's meeting, or do a study session that addresses this. I think it'll be a lot of fun and a great way to kick off the year. So are there any other bits? Yes, Rick.
Just one more thing. We would probably send this out.